Are Chelsea going to miss out on a goalkeeping target? Are we going to finally look at replacing Levi Colwill? Are we going back in for an attacking midfielder that turned us down in the summer? And could Blueco look outside of their regular profile of youngsters to add experienced attacking reinforcements in January? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And man, it is October. We are barely into October, and the transfer wheel just keeps on spinning. We have got a lot of stories to get through today, each of them all interesting in themselves. And I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of these stories are from self-inflicted issues, ones that we probably should already have dealt with, but at least it looks like they're being looked into. But guys, before we get into it, if you're enjoying the content and would like to see more, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Oh, and if you can see that hype button, give that a click as well, because I want to be in that leaderboard, man. Why not? Right, so loads of different little stories to go through today, so let's just get through them one at a time, and we will start with Maignan, the goalkeeper situation. So there's been lots of stories about us potentially going back in for Maignan. Some stories saying that we might go in January, and some stories saying that we just might sign the pre-contract agreement with him in January because he's only got 6 months left on his deal. So that means that we could sign him up for the start of next season. Now, other combatants have entered the fray to fight for the signature of Maignan in the form of Bayern Munich and Juventus. So this is interesting for a couple of reasons. So with Bayern Munich situation, Manuel Neuer is 39 years old. And yes, he's still doing really well. At the end of the day, you know, unbelievable goalkeeper, but maybe not hitting quite the heights that he used to. And Bayern Munich have 100% been known to take advantage of financial opportunity when one arises. So that'd be an interesting one. Mike Maignan at the end of the day is nearly 10 years, if not 10 years, Manuel Neuer's senior. So even though Mike Maignan is an experienced goalkeeper, he's not quite as experienced as Manuel Neuer. Does Manuel Neuer need replacing? Let me know if you know anything about that in the comments, guys. He looked pretty good against us in the Champions League game, but at the end of the day, 39, not only is he 39, literally, he's been playing for like 20 years, do you know what I mean? So he's had a really, really long career. Juventus, a bit of a different story. There's been some criticism directed towards their goalkeeper for inconsistent performances, and they see Mike Maignan as an opportunity. Now, Italian clubs obviously struggle with budgets, a bit more than Premier League clubs and Spanish clubs do and stuff as well. So you can see why Mike Maignan represents such a good opportunity for the likes of Juventus as well. On the side of that, the other news that I've seen is apparently Chelsea are debating walking away from the Mike Maignan deal because they believe in Mike Penders, right? And Mike Penders is having a good time out at Strasbourg at the moment. And the idea is to potentially persist with Robert Sanchez and Philip Jorgensen. And then when we get to the end of the season or the start of next season, bring in Mike Penders to fight for the number one spot. Or similar to how we did that with Courtois and Cech. Obviously, we're talking about very different level quality of goalkeeper. I mean, Mike Penders could turn out to be as good as Courtois, I guess. But Sanchez isn't exactly Petr Cech, is he? So that's an interesting one, man. I don't know. I think if it's to fight for the number one, then fair enough. But if it's to come in to be the number two, a la Philip Jorgensen, I think it's better to just leave Mike Penders out on loan at Strasbourg. You need minutes as a goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not going to get brought on here and there. Like if you're a winger and you're a 19, 20-year-old winger, you might get minutes here and there, like Tyreek George did, for instance. Do you know what I mean? Because of subs and this, that, and the other. But you're never subbing your goalkeeper, are you? Very, very, very rarely. Maybe there's a penalty shootout coming up or something, but it's not really the same thing. Philip Jorgensen has only managed to get one game for us so far this season, and it was against Lincoln. Do you know what I mean? So even with our issues with Robert Sanchez and, the fan base and obviously the mistakes that are made and the odd red card and this, that, and the other, Philip Jorgensen still not seen as good enough to displace Robert Sanchez. So I back the idea that Mike Penders could come in and fight for the number one. But if he ends up being the number two, that would be a bit disappointing because I think for his development, the best thing for him is to get minutes. For me, I guess it's a lot of change, isn't it? But for me, it's you know what? I spoke to someone about this in the comments a little while ago when I did a video about Mike Maignan. It's like if Mike Penders he made a fair point. He was like, if Mike Penders comes back, and we buy Maignan, then we just end up wasting money on Maignan if Mike Penders becomes the number one. And my justification for it, in a way, if that happens, is yes, that is true. But at the end of the day, that's only the good for the club. If we get Mike Maignan on a free transfer, and then Mike Penders comes in and wins that number one battle, then at the end of the day, we've got the best goalkeeper because he's the best goalkeeper. So for the squad, it'd be good. But obviously, then you'd end up with an unhappy Mike Maignan on your books. And yeah, I can kind of understand why that'd be a problem. So if full faith is being put on bringing Mike Penders back to Chelsea at the end of the season to compete for the number one spot next year, I can see why we wouldn't necessarily go in for Mike Maignan for next year if Blueco, and I don't think this is the case, by the way, but if Blueco think that we could win something big this year, a la Champions League or, challenge for the Premier League, and the goalkeeper is a massive barrier to that, then maybe that's a reason that we go in for Mike Maignan in January. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think they think that's the case. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense, man. And at the end of the day, like, Mike Maignan isn't going to find himself in this kind of position if he goes to Bayern Munich to take over a 39-year-old Manuel Neuer, or goes in for, into Juventus to try and... He would have to fight for the spot at Juventus at the end of the day, so I guess the Bayern Munich one would be a bit more of a solid option for him. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about it in the comments about the goalkeeper situation. Has Sanchez done enough to prove to you that he's worth sticking with for the rest of the season to bring Mike Penders in at the end of the season if he carries on doing well at Strasbourg? Or do you think that we should just go in for Mike Maignan right now because you can't stand the sight of Sanchez in between the sticks anymore? Right, moving on to the centre-back situation. So we've had a tenuous link with a centre-back who I actually really like the look of. His name is Castello Lucuba, and he was brought to my attention in the transfer window by one of my regular commenters. And fair play to you, man. If you're watching this, fair play, because he's carried on looking really, really good. He is a left-footed, athletic centre-back with very good passing ability, slightly a la Levi Colwill. And ultimately, if we are going to, it looks like we kind of still need to go in for a centre-back, doesn't it? Bearing in mind everything that's happened. Disasi still needs to get sold. I still think that there is a chance that Badiashile could get sold. And parent club of Castello Lucuba, Red Bull Leipzig, have intimated that he might be available for 60 million euros, 50 to 60 million euros, which is like 30 to 45 million pounds, which is pretty good, man. Do you know what I mean? That's pretty good. He's a very young lad. I think he's only 21, 22. He's playing a lot of first team football with Red Bull Leipzig, and he's doing a good job out there at the moment. So that could be an interesting one. That is the kind of signing that I would expect us to make in January, truth be told. I'm seeing stuff about crazy amounts of money for like Antoine Semenyo and stuff like this. I don't think that would be a January move. If we make moves in January, it will be cut price moves. The Mark Guehi thing, he's still my ideal choice, to be honest, but at the end of the day, Castello Lucuba definitely represents a more Blueco-friendly option in terms of the profile. He's, obviously being a young player, resale value. If you buy Mark Guehi, then you buy him to kind of go into the squad, and you're probably not going to make any money from selling him on in the future. So Castello Lucuba looks really good, and fair play to the guy in the comments all that time ago that pointed him out to be in the first place, because, man, you could have been right about that one. Right, next up, Fermin Lopez. Oh, that's a name that we started hearing a lot towards the end of the transfer window, isn't it? So Enzo Maresca, in particular, still seems to quite like the look of Fermin Lopez, and interest is still being held. There has been some talk recently about a player called Casado from Barcelona as well. Apparently, it's come out that is wide of the mark, and the only Barcelona player that Chelsea are interested in is Fermin Lopez. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. Again, so Frankie de Jong has just signed a new contract. Pedri has just signed a new contract. Do you know what I mean? They are locking down their first-team midfielders. Fermin Lopez is still on the fringes at Barcelona and is not getting huge amounts of game time. And apparently, if the sources are to be believed, Maresca really, really rates Fermin Lopez and really rates his versatility. And it also could be, so obviously we needed another centre attacking midfielder, didn't we? It's like, I did my video yesterday, the Palmer problem with, we've got 4 games now in front of us where Cole Palmer might not be available. And do we play Estevao or Buonanotte, or do we put Enzo Fernandez there or whatever? Because what we didn't do, apart from Facundo Buonanotte, is buy a solid backup centre attacking midfielder. And we loaned one from Brighton, do you know what I mean? But we didn't purchase for the team someone that you can really get involved in developing. And, Fermin Lopez was apparently the alternative to Xavi Simons. And obviously we just didn't get it over the line, so we're without that position now. Fermin Lopez can play a bit deeper as well, and I guess he could either play that Cole Palmer position or he could play the position that Enzo Fernandez is currently kind of playing, with being that kind of deeper midfielder that can also play in that more attacking role. Interestingly, obviously I've just reported on Madrid still being interested in Enzo Fernandez as well. So again, this might be one for the summer. I don't think very many of these deals are going to happen in January. Maybe Castello Lucaba, but either way, I don't, the Fermin Lopez will be an end of the season thing, I would have thought. And obviously, if we've sold Enzo Fernandez for 100 mil plus, then we've got some money in the bank to go out and replace him. Maresca really, really likes Fermin Lopez and sees a lot of opportunities to give him different positions in the team. So that would be an interesting one, man. He does look really good. And at the end of the day, if he gets to the end of the season and hasn't been able to break into that Barca team, then he's probably going to have more of an eye out the door, isn't he? Because obviously that was one of the things, like, he's still really young, like 22 years old, was a consummate professional during all of the transfer news and talks that were arriving in and around Chelsea, and has come out pretty strong saying that he loves being at Barca and he wants to try and fight his way into the team. If he gets to 22, 23 years old at the end of the season and hasn't managed to look at displacing any of the Barcelona midfielders, then I think it would make sense. At the end of the day, he also didn't come out like during the time that we were looking at and being like, no, I absolutely just want to stay at Barca. There was open dialogue, and if the right bid would have come in, and if we'd have spent a lot of money on him that we weren't willing to because we put like a 35 million bid in, then he might have moved in the first place. So one to keep an eye on, man. Fermin Lopez, definitely still one to keep an eye on. And we're going to wrap the video up with some striker talk. So we'll start with Marc Guéhi. Marc Guéhi has got minutes. Marc Guéhi featured for like 15, 20 minutes against Liverpool in the Premier League the other day and had a few moments where he looks all right, but apparently his camp and himself are frustrated at the lack of game time and seeing Tyreek George getting opportunities over him. And I'm not surprised, man. Literally, it's just bonkers, isn't it? Like, Marc Guéhi literally played for us quite a lot last season, scored a load of goals, knows Enzo Maresca, knows what he expects of him, and Tyreek George is being given all this game time. And Tyreek George is also supposedly still available for sale in January as well. So the whole striker conspiracy theory, right? It was Guéhi wasn't getting any minutes because you can't play for more than two teams in one season. And he played for Sunderland and now he's played for Chelsea. But if he hadn't have played for Chelsea, then he might have been able to go somewhere else in January. But lo and behold, he has played for Chelsea. Now, what this could mean is that he wants to go back to Sunderland. Are Sunderland still interested? Potentially. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, they're going to want as much firepower and backup as they can get for the entire season because they are looking at trying to do something special, and absolutely fair play to them for that. And yeah, so, I mean, I guess it will largely depend on what happens over these next few games, won't it? Because if we don't see Marc Guéhi again for another 6 games and he already features once off the bench for like 20 minutes, he's not going to be happy, is he? So yeah, it would kind of make sense for Marc Guéhi to go back to Sunderland if they've still got a spot open for him, but I'm not sure if they brought someone in to replace that third striker role or backup striker role that they're looking for. It's a shame for me, man. I really like Marc Guéhi, and apparently Chelsea do see his great potential. Do you know what I mean? But of course they're going to say that. At the end of the day, he was an absolute steal, man. 5 mil from Barca because he was a really young lad and his contract was getting towards the end of it. Do you know what I mean? So we got him for a really good deal, and if we do end up selling him properly, we'll make a huge amount of money. But the only other club he can play for this season is Sunderland, because he's now played for Sunderland and he's played some minutes in a competitive match for Chelsea. So if he wants to play anywhere else this season, it can only be Sunderland. And if he's not happy, he might be agitating for that move. So that brings me on to, I think this one's pretty wild. I'm just going to put this out there, but I like the idea of it, and there are some things that kind of make sense with it. Ivan Toney, right? Wow, Ivan Toney, man. Ivan Toney committed the cardinal sin of moving to the Saudi Pro League whilst he was in his prime. A couple of players have done that now as well, man. A couple of players have actually gone out and done that. They've chosen the bag over the football. But Ivan Toney is now not being selected for the England team, despite performing really well. He scored like 38 goals over in the Saudi League so far. It shows you that he's still head and shoulders above the level of the league that they've got out there. But at the same time, he's not playing top-level football, so he's not getting thought about and selected for the England team. Ivan Toney is 29 years old now, and he's on his way to being 30, so this is probably the last World Cup that he's likely to be able to feature for, and potentially Chelsea might be interested. If we do loan Mark Yu back to Sunderland in January, we'll still be one striker short. Yes, Liam Delap will be coming back, but we still need to be careful with him. Because obviously we know Reece James and his hamstrings. Do you know what I mean? We know exactly how long that can take to get properly fit again. And Mark Yu would potentially represent an experienced opportunity to come in. I don't know if it'd be a sale or a loan. They paid quite a lot of money for him. I don't think we'd be looking, if man, you wouldn't really want to pay more than 20 mil, would you, for Ivan Toney at the moment, just based on the fact that he's the age he is and he'd been in the Saudi league. So there's never going to be any resale value, which is a big no-no for Bluecoat. So if there's going to be no resale value, as with Mike Maignan, for instance, then you'd only take him on if the deal really benefits you. So just an interesting one. I'd like to see it, to be honest. I think Ivan Toney I was interested in Ivan Toney when he went. I think it's mad that no one was looking at him. I think it was just because of the price, which is a shame, really. But if he wants to get into the World Cup and we need a striker to get us some goals in the second half of the season and give João Pedro a bit of a break and make sure that we don't push too hard on Liam Delap, then Ivan Toney doesn't seem like a terrible option, does he? Let me know what you think about that one in the comments, guys. Be really interested to know what you think. If we can get him on a loan, cool. If we can get him for anything sub 20 mil, I guess that would represent pretty good value to say there's going to be no resale potential at the end of that deal either. So I'm kind of here for it, man. I'm kind of here for it. I'm here for anything that takes some pressure off of João Pedro and means we don't have to force Liam Delap back in, and means that we don't have to carry on doing things like putting Tyreek George up front. Honestly, I'd rather just keep Mark Yu and give him a chance, but I'm not the manager. I'm not seeing whatever Maresca is seeing in training, and I don't have his vision for how he wants the team to play. So at the end of the day, if Mark Yu's going to go and thinks he'll get more game time back at Sunderland, then fair enough. That will be what it will be. So guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Just a couple of little chunks of transfer news for us to get through today, but they are all quite interesting, and I would like to know what you think about each and every one of them. Mike Maignan, if we're going to walk away from that deal because we're going to put our faith in Mike Penders for the rest of the season, do you back that, or would you bring Mike Maignan in now to replace Robert Sanchez? Castello Lucaba looks like a really good option, but we do have a swath of centre-backs. We have a lot of centre-backs at the moment, so who goes in order to make room for him? Fermin Lopez, should we have let that deal die and look on moving on to other targets? But Enzo Maresca seems to be really interested in him, and he's not getting the game time at Barcelona. So again, do you think that's a move worth going for? And Ivan Toney in January, that is a wild one. I think 100%, I think that's a wild one, but it is an interesting thing to talk about, right? And do you think that having some experience in the striking department for the back end of the season is a good idea? So nice one, guys. Thanks for all sticking around until the end of the video. If you did, I'm just going to say it one more time. I try not to get too many in, but guys, I'm so close to 1,000 subs now. I've got like 20 to go. I can feel it at this point. It's not even about smelling and tasting anymore. I can literally feel it. It's right there. I can touch it. So if you haven't already and you're enjoying the content, click that subscribe button, give us a like, click hype, anything that can get me out to someone else that might be able to subscribe as well. I'd really, really appreciate it. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day. Take it easy. Peace.